Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tom Schoen, and I want to welcome you to our basic profilometry and scleral lens fitting webinar. We're super excited about this webinar. We had a large group register for the webinar, and we're thrilled to have as our guest speaker Dr. Tom Arnold. Tom doesn't mind me calling him Tom. Tom practices in Houston, and he has had an ESP for what, 3 years now?
I think so.
Yeah.
Going on. Yeah.
And he's going to walk you through his experience with it. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about profilometry and what that means and how it works. Then I'm going to get into specialty lenses and the current state. Obviously, the emphasis in North America with profilometry is on scleral lenses, and it does a great job with sclerals, but it does so much more. Then I'm going to kick it over to Tom. He's going to walk you through the ice surface profiler itself and talk to you quite a bit about his experience and how he thinks it's essentially an invaluable tool. Then we're going to kick it over to Reinier Stortelder. He is the head of professional affairs. He pretty much heads up everything at Eaglet Eye. He's in Utrecht, the Netherlands, and so he'll walk you through the software and show you some live demo stuff and show you, I think, 3 different cases he's going to walk you through. Let me get going and talk to you a little bit about profilometry. The Eaglet Eye is based on the technology around profilometry and how that works. So profilometry covers a wider measurement zone, not only the cornea, but also the sclera. And in the case of the ESP, it will go out to 20 millimeters in diameter. So you're going to get a very large portion of the sclera, plenty large enough to fit almost any scleral lens available today. Profilometry means that there's really no more guesswork in fitting a scleral lens. You're going to understand what's going on in the sclera. And as you guys well know, the landing zone is key to fitting a scleral. And the more we learn about the sclera, the more we realize how complex the sclera is in terms of how you can make that scleral lens settle down in the landing area properly. And the more we learn about the complexity, the more labs improve their designs and their options and their features, the more you're going to need a profilometer to really understand what's going on out there. So I call that a vicious cycle. There's nothing vicious about it, but the world's moving fast. So more than just the sclera, other issues like pinguecula can be easily identified, measured, and communicated effectively to the lab so that things just speed up and more precise. And we're on the verge of going straight to, in my mind anyway, we're on the verge of going straight to empirical fitting, which means no more diagnostic lenses, no more messing around with diagnostic lenses, no more disinfecting diagnostic lenses, and going straight to empirical fitting. And we'll talk about that a little more as we get going here. So in terms of specialty lenses, I already kind of alluded to this, but there's a clear industry trend towards more personalized lens designs. This is often referred to as customization or free form or anything like that. So we're headed towards more complicated lenses, and we're almost to the point where, and certainly in most complex cases, a custom lens is warranted and needed. The design of the software and the design of the lenses mean that many customizations are possible. This requires precise information about what's going on the eye. And I talked about the essential nature of profilometry and fitting scleral lenses. And I talked a little bit about the goal is empirical fitting. So that's our background. I am now going to turn it over to Dr. Tom Arnold.
Thank you, Tom and Elena and Reinier and Arnie, of course, Snafangers, for inviting me today and letting me, be a partner in this journey of profilometry. I have been involved in profilometry in various stages for probably almost 5 years. And as Tom, as you said, I've had the ESP, privilege to have it for just about 3. So this has been a journey for me because I recognized early on that as we started fitting more and more scleral lens patients, they get more complicated. And as you fit more people, you realize that one size does not fit all. And you can be scratching your head trying to solve a case and not know what's going on. And so profilometry certainly has its place, because that's what we're trying to fit. We're trying to fit the scleral profile. And one of the things I like about the eaglet is, as you can see from our photo, it's a very small footprint. It can fit about anywhere. Worked with a number of different computer options. So very, very small, very compact, very easy to use. And we'll demonstrate that as we go forward. So the way the profiler works, the ESP works, is it's one camera. It has two light projectors focusing on the eye. The image is processed via a Fourier transformation. And what that means to us is that we have a three-dimensional image with over 500,000 data points. And I want to point out the bisphere image there that you see on the right. If you look at that, look how ectatic this sclera is. It's very flat. It's very steep on the bottom, indicated by the blue lines, and then flat on the top. And you see you have a pinguecula there. So before the days of profilometry, if you just did, an HVID and you looked at a case and put your favorite lens on, you'd have a lot of issues with that. That lens would be dropping a lot. It'd be very irregular, and you try to be fixing it, and you go, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to have a toric haptic. But if you look at that scan, you'll see a standard symmetrical toric haptic, that is one meridian steeper than the other. It's not going to work on that eye. So you spend a lot of time trying to figure out, well, how am I going to fix, why isn't this lens centering, and why isn't this patient comfortable? And looking at this image, right off the bat, the complexity of this patient, and you can have an intelligent discussion with them and say, the standard lens may not be right for you, Mr. and Mrs. Patient. We're going to have, you're more complicated, and we have the tools to work with you, but just let him know up front, what the journey's going to involve. And so the other thing nice about this particular instrument is that it is a single shot instrument. It's very, very fast. You're looking at the eye in primary gaze. You don't have to do eccentric viewing. That is, you don't have to have the patient look up, left, right, down. And therefore, the image is not stitched. It's not extrapolate or stitch. It's real data. Again, we talked about 500,000 data points with an accuracy of 2 microns in the cornea and 100 micron or 10 microns in the sclera. Very, very tight tolerances for this. And the other thing that really sets the Eaglet ESP apart from some of the other options in the marketplace today is that it works with a variety of lenses. Okay, you have a complete software analysis of over 14 maps. So it's a profilometer, but it's also a topographer too. So it's useful in fitting corneal lenses, ortho K lenses. It's appropriate for that. And so you have 18 different parameters and 2 independent calculators. So it really gives you, a lot of accuracy and data available, not only of the sclera and the scleral profile, but also the cornea. And so what really is the engine of this instrument is what we call the first fit algorithms. These are algorithms that you will select your favorite lens, and it will suggest your first diagnostic lens and recommend what that haptic or landing should be. And so as we see more and more patients, and as the patients get more complex, it's important that we be fast and we have less chair time. We want optimal outcomes. So we want the lens to fit right the first time. Both the instrument and the software is very easy to use. My technicians took to it very, very quickly. And again, like we said, there's over 40 algorithms already built in from 18 different labs, and we're adding more every day. The eye surface profiler is really focused on your specialty lens practice. And for me, specialty lenses have really, energized my practice and captured my attention. And I think for especially those of us who are independent practitioners, specialty lenses are the future. And that's not only sclerals, but ortho K, hybrid lenses, and then some of the special designs we have now with the RGPs. So you can see from the illustration here that Eaglet works with a number of labs. So it's lab independent, lab agnostic, and there's more labs than these, although I know that these names are familiar, to most everybody. So the chances are extremely good that whatever lab you're working with, whoever you use as consultants, you'll be able to still remain with them, and they will be happy to work with you on this, because the more data you can give to the lab and the lab consultants, the more accurate your fitting can be, and less returns, less remakes, and happier patients.
So, Tom, I want to point out that the users that have the ESP are telling us which labs we should be focusing on. We're a small team, and there's only so much time in the day. But if a customer says, "Hey, I need an algorithm for lens XYZ," we will track that down, see if the lab's willing to work with us, and get it done.
Very true, and a good point. But you've done an outstanding job already, Arnie and Reinier and you and your whole team. Those are major labs. The ones you have on board, I think, must have 95% market share, at least in America. So I do want to give a short anecdote. When I started really getting into especially scleral lenses, especially about 7 years ago, and I started doing more complex cases, and I was debating whether I need more specialized tools like impression molding and stuff. And I was talking to a good friend of ours, Christine Sent, and I said, well, I don't know about this. I'm doing fine with my one or two designs. And she said, kind of on the Field of Dreams movie model, if you build it, they will come. And she told me, she said, if you start doing this, you're going to get more and more complex and complicated cases. And that certainly has been the case. We're in Texas, which is, we like to brag, is a pretty large state. So we have, as word gets around, as we built our practice, and we get more referrals. People come from all over the state, from the surrounding states, Louisiana, and as far away as Kansas. I've even had a gentleman from Nigeria come, and we have patients from Mexico. So that means they're traveling a long way. They're spending time. They're spending money to stay there, to travel, and losing time from work or school. So it's very, very important to us to make their experience very, very efficient, get the job done quickly, the first time, the right time. And so surface profilometry really helps us to do that. By getting that first lens fit, shape to the eye itself using ESP will lead to at least 50% fewer refits. And I think that's certainly true and not exaggerated at all. You want the lens to be comfortable from the get-go. You want to minimize remakes and returns. You want to get that patient, back to their home or office or school, productive. So shorter chair time is very, very important. The other thing too, and Tom mentioned it, and I think we'll talk a little bit about empirical fitting. This has been a goal of mine for a number of years. And then now that we have COVID, where we're worried about contamination and exposure and excessive time, spending too much time in the office, having accurate profilometry enables us to take that next leap of true empirical fitting. And so that way we're not guessing, we're not guesstimating, we're not putting on 2, 3, 4 diagnostic lenses. We can scan it, put that information directly into the laboratory, and get that lens turned around quickly and accurately. So it's a lot more comfortable. It's more comfortable for the patients, and more comfort means they're going to stick with it. Scleral lenses, after all, in particular, there's a lot of work with sclerals. You have to insert them a certain way. You have to use certain things. You have to use solutions. So the easier we can make this for patients, the less burdensome, the more comfortable. It really creates a wow factor and enhances your practice and the satisfaction of your patients. So in that way, you get the reputation of this doctor, this practice is up to date, it's technologically advanced, and I have confidence in them. So I think for special interest practice, this is where we need to be. This is not the future. The future is now. Very, very easy. The technicians have no issue with this. We lubricate the eye by putting in a couple of lubricating drops, artificial tears, because we are looking at the tear film. We want a good tear layer. Pre-aligned devices, I'm sure we do with any of our instruments, by getting the chin height properly aligned and the canthus marker and so forth. We instill fluorescein. We use a good amount of fluorescein. It's helpful to dim the lights as much as possible and just instruct the patient to look straight ahead, open both eyelids wide. The patient can actually pull down their lower eyelid a bit if necessary, and the technician can help raise the upper eyelid a bit. Get them all aligned and just click. So it doesn't take very long, and you can get a good image in one view, not multiple views, as we talked about. I think we have a little video here. This is what the technician or the doctor would be seeing as they line up, open up those pupils or the lids, align the Purkinje images, and click capture. And then you can review it and to see if this is the image from which you glean the data that we desire. And the important thing to identify a good image is obviously we want the lids well retracted so we see a good amount of the surface sclera. You want the Purkinje images pretty much aligned with a little red reticules in the middle of the cross. And then I'll point out to you, on the right side of the image, you'll see two little gray blobs, like two little clouds there. And those are alignment images. So they should be above and below the horizontal red line and fairly aligned vertically. And in this way, your technician will know this is a good image. We're going to have good data coming from this image, and you can go forward. So, and you can see from the little video how quick it is to take that image. All right, so Raul, I'd like to turn it over to Reinier Stortelder, the chief engineer and programmer behind all this. And Reinier, I just have to tell you, it's been a pleasure to work with you. And you've really listened to my suggestions and my complaints and all my foibles and mess ups, and you've been very tolerant of me. So I do appreciate all the hard work you put into this. So. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Tom, for the nice words. I will take over the screen. As Tom already told, we have a long list of maps and calculators. The bisphere elevation map is always the first map that you see. It is the main map that we have, and you can find a lot of data here. So in this example, you can see on the left side, so in this area, as well as on the right side, you see two red dots. Everything which is red is more elevated. So you're looking at an eye having two pingueculi. So that's what you can take out of this map straight away. But looking at this map may be complex as well. You see, for example, when I have my mouse, this box is coming up showing a lot of numbers. So this is a map you really have to dig into the numbers in certain cases. So we came up with something making it easier, and we call it the Scleral profile map. The Scleral profile map is helping you to look at the eye and to see, or look at the map and to see very quickly what is the shape of the limbus and what is the shape of the sclera. So we're analyzing the eye ring by ring, and we're going to color code it. And there are 4 options shown here. So if it's showing blue rings, it means that area is spheric in shape. If it's showing the red-green rings, it's toric in shape, quad-specific. And if it's showing yellow rings, it does not fit into any of these conditions. So then it's more irregular than that. From our experience, I would say that most of the eyes are quad specific. So probably 70% of the cases are rather complex to work with. Beside of that, in this example, you also see those two blue rings. They are indicating the pinguecula. So our software is detecting pingueculae, and they are going to show it with a blue ring. So always they show up quickly, always double check it, but the software points it out to you, there is a pinguecula. Okay, for this example, so my first image was rather complex. So right now I'm taking an easier example. So we're starting with the bisphere elevation map. And what we see here is a cornea and a sclera with the rule. So we have the flat meridian, because the colors at the horizontal meridians are more elevated, so yellow or red. And vertical, we have the steep meridian. If we're looking at the scleral profile map, we see it here as well. So it's indicating this sclera is toric in shape. So far, I've been just talking about the maps, but we also have algorithms helping you to fit lenses. We call it first lens fit. As already shown, we have a long list of labs and lenses included. For this example, I'm showing a Zen lens because it's probably the market leader in America. So what you do, you select Bausch, you select Zen lens. Let's go, and there are a couple of designs, but for now I'm taking the classic design. And you have to choose, do you want to work with the 16 or the 17 millimeter lens? We try to have all the information in one screen. Choosing between a 16 or a 17, you can do it based on the HVID, which you can find at the bottom right. Over 12 millimeters, usually I go for a 17 millimeter lens. You simply hit calculate. At that moment, we push the measurement to the cloud. So all the calculations we're doing in the cloud. That means that we can always offer you the latest algorithms, even when you are behind on software updates or whatever reason, or if there was a bug. So we always have the algorithms in the cloud to offer you the latest algorithms. After 30 seconds, you get 4 values back. So it's telling you what we believe is going to be the final fit. So we're not pointing to a lens in your trial kit, but we believe that this will be the final lens. So it's giving you the SAC of the lens. It's also pointing to a customized base curve. So we're not going to tell you prolate or oblate, but we believe that if you customize the base curve, that you have a much smoother, more uniform alignment with the cornea. So therefore, we give a customized base curve. APS-1 is always the flat meridian with a toric lens, and APS-2 is the steep meridian. So in this case, a flat 6, steep 6. Beside of that, the only part you still have to do with a lens on eye is just to calculate the power. We copy the base curve to the right side of the screen, so you can find it here as well. let's say that your trial lens is having a base curve 7.6 minus 2. Oops. So right now I have everything given, and now I just have to do the over refraction. Let's say I measure minus 4, and at the bottom you find the final power that you need to order. So once again, we try to have everything in one screen, helping you to do the full fit. Remains just the ordering process. Well, we announced 2 weeks ago 5.0 XT. One of the major upgrades is that for many labs, we offer direct connect, which means just a simple button. So at the moment that I push this button, it's taking you to a form or the website, a tool from the lab itself. So it depends on which lab you're working with, but we have a lot of labs offering a direct connect. So that means that after doing the measurement, your over refraction, you just hit the button, everything together with the measurement itself is pushed to the lab. So they have all the information together, so you can have consultation or a discussion, whatever. All the information is just bundled together to streamline the process to make it as fast and easy as possible.
Now, Reinier, let me jump in. Are you going to show them a Blanchard example?
I can definitely do that at this moment.
Okay.
So I'm taking a one fit mat 15.6. I hit the calculate button. So that takes another 30 seconds. So I hit the one fit mat button. And at this moment, it is pulling up a website. Give it a moment.
And if you don't mind me jumping in here as well, the nice thing about 5.0 XT is that we now have vertical visible iris diameter as well as horizontal, because we've learned over the last few years that many corneas are oval. The limbus is oval, and several of these manufacturers address that, and that aids in fitting as well.
Yeah, especially now with some labs coming up with oval optic zones.
Yep.
Now back to the example. So this is the tool coming up from Blanchard. So all the information is copied in there. So everything is here, and they come up with a recommended trial lens. And here you can, further customize the lens if necessary. But usually, what we're aiming for is that, of course, we're coming up with the final lens fit. We're aiming to reduce the amount of 3 lenses, which we've heard is about the average that you need to come up with the final fitted lens. We try to reduce it to 1.5, something like this.
So, Reinier, I want to make sure I understand the difference between trial lenses and diagnostic lenses. This isn't a recommended diagnostic lens, like go to the shelf and pull this lens. This is what they're calling a trial, which is going to be the first lens fit. Am I correct?
Correct. Yeah. So this is what is believed going to be the final lens. Many people still like to see a scleral lens on the eye to wait for about 30 minutes and see how much is it settling, how does it work, impingement, whatever.
Yeah.
So therefore, they're still pointing to a trial lens from their kit.
Yeah.
But that's the approach Blanchard is taking. Let me pull up another example. What I could have been doing as well is go for ScanFit Pro. If I hit this button, I just get this. So I have their local software, and they come up with a perfect fitting lens, customizing each meridian. and they go for this final lens, and they're not pointing to a trial kit anymore because they don't have it, because they're just customizing the lens completely. So it's just the approach of the lab, how they do it. If they believe there should be a lens on the eye, or you can go completely empiric. And then probably, Tom, you can kick in as well. It's also dependent on your patients. We had a discussion 1-2 weeks ago about, when do you choose for ScanFit, or when do you go conventional?
I assume that question's for Tom Arnold, not for Tom Schoen.
Tom Arnold, yeah.
Yes, that's absolutely right, Reinier. It depends on how complicated the patient is. What you're looking at, what their severity of their disease is, or ectasia. When we do empirical fitting, meaning that we're just going to use the scan to order even the Scleral lens, the shortcut way, we found it very, very useful over time, is we can just pop a corneal RGP lens on that eye, known base curve, known power, over refract that. And that as well will enter into the calculator that we find there, and that works really well. And that way, you're not putting multiple diagnostic Scleral lenses on a patient, which means you have to fill up with salines, you got to put the fluorescein on, you have all that. The first lens you order empirically from these data is going to be right on. And the only thing that you might end up tweaking is that final refractive power, but you're going to be close enough where I'm going to say 95% of the cases, that first lens that you've ordered empirically from these data, they're going to be able to walk out with. So it really is a time saver. Not only, as I alluded to, people coming from a long way away, you want to minimize the visits, but also in this era of COVID, you don't want a bunch of people in your office for long periods of time. You want to get them up, you want to scan them, diagnose them, do no refraction, and then say, thank you very much. We'll see you in 2 weeks. And that first lens is going to fit and it's going to be comfortable. And that's your wow factor and patient satisfaction.
That's a great point, Tom. Thank you. And that just shows how close to actually truly realistic empirical fitting we are getting with the eye surface profiler. So
it's my preference. Whenever I feel confident enough that I can do empirical, that's what I lead with.
Okay, so there are 2 questions in the chat room, and Gloria Chu asks, does it do quad specific for Zenlens? Reinier, can you?
Absolutely, it does. As you see, here is quite a long list. Zenlens quad. Right. So I should go for a 17 because of the HVID. I hit calculate. Give it another 30 seconds.
I'll give a shout out to Gloria. Hi, Gloria. This is Tom. Also, when they do the bi-elevation lens, which is really cool, which is more of an oval optic zone, it'll have the sag in the optical zone, and that carries through into the haptic as well. So that's a very, very good lens for complicated eyes.
Yeah. After the example of the quad lens, I will show an example of the Zen BE as well. So the beginning is all the same, a sag and a customized base curve. And after that, you get 4 APS values. Right now, the differences are not that much because we are looking at the toric eye. And here you also have where do you find 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 1 is always on top. The second one is always on the right, and the third one at the bottom. It's just customizing it completely. So you see there are some slight differences, a flat 8 compared to a flat 5, as well as a steep 8 and a steep 5. So in this case, no extreme differences because this eye is so toric, but the tool can do it. When you're dealing, for example, with a Boston side lens, you're always going to fit a quad specific lens. So also here, we're going to get 4 haptics. And what you may have noticed here as well, we try to take the naming system by the lab as much as possible. So Boston Site is calling it haptic, whereas ZenLens is calling it APS. Now back to the example from Tom. I like to show a very little rule of thumb to choose between a ZenBE and a ZenLens. Both designs are toric, but the difference is the classic design only has the full toricity at the very edge of the lens, whereas the ZenBE is landing already in a toric shape. So that means that the first point where the lens starts landing on the eye is already designed toric. How do I choose between which to take? I go to the chord length tool, which is at the bottom, the upper right, sorry. I use a chord length 13 because that's more or less where you start to land. And I'm looking at the difference value. Over 100 microns, I prefer the ZenBE because it's going to give you better centration, less midday fogging, and less conjunctival prolapse. Let's hit the button and let's see what's coming up. So what you see here, and it's probably a little confusing in the beginning, but the APS values are nearly spheric. But what you also notice is that there are 2 SAG values, and the difference between those is 400 microns. You have to think about this 400 microns because the difference between the APS values here is still 400 microns because it's carrying through. So from the start of the landing zone until the edge of the landing zone. So you still have to see that this one is plus 400 steeper than the other one. Yeah, giving you a much better centration of the lens and especially less midday fogging. Anything to add, Tom Arnold?
No, that's great. That's a great tool. And I'm glad you pointed that out, Reinier, because it is confusing because the APS values look basically the same. But the SAG carries through.
So
That's
Reinier,
a great design. Tip hat to Jason Jedlicka.
Yes. So Reinier, the other question was from Charlie Ray Edmonds. What exactly does the lab get /see when you hit? I assume when you hit the direct connection is the question.
Yeah, I will just bring it up.
And they basically, I'll preface that by saying they get everything they need to make the lens.
The labs love this. Every lab that I've dealt with on Direct Connect, they absolutely love it.
Yeah. This is just an online ordering tool. So it's what you used to do on a sheet or by an email. And beside of that, we're also at the background including this measurement. So this measurement plus everything that you need, and we already populate all the data which you did calculate before. Beside of that, it's up to you if you want something special like multifocals or anything else. Just everything together plus the measurement. And that's making it much easier because you can ask the consultation, do you agree or do you have a solution or whatever question you may have.
Right. And Reinier, most of the labs, if not all the labs, have a copy of the software in their lab on the consultation desk, and they can then bring up the MSR file, which shows them exactly what you were showing us a couple minutes ago. So they can look at that. They've been trained in this, and they can look at that and say, if you've got questions, they can say, well, maybe this, maybe try that, So they can do. They're there for you. They can do anything you need.
Goes back to what I was saying earlier about time saver and efficiency. In our practice, we still have a regular general practice, but on Mondays and Thursdays, I devote those days to scleral patients. And as I said, they get harder and harder. And every 2 or 3 or 5 minutes you can save really makes a difference in your day. So it's a huge advantage.
Meanwhile, I took the last example that I prepared, the most complex example. I want to show a couple of things. You're looking at an eye where the sclera is shaped with the rule. So you have the flat meridian, let me color it in green, and you have the steep meridian, indicated by the red colors more elevated and blue more depressed. It's sometimes interesting to dig into the numbers. So let's say that you want to fit a 17mm lens on this eye. So I use a chord length 17, and I'm looking at this difference value again, because this difference value gives you the difference between the flat and the steep meridian at 17mm. What you notice here is that 0.82 or 820 microns of difference. This is huge, very huge. And probably you don't believe this is daily practice, probably not daily practice, but I'm pretty sure that you in a busy practice like Tom Arnold has, is that he sees it probably every 2 weeks, such extreme amounts of toricity. So they're definitely not rare. If you think about your trial sets, so your trial lenses, they are often only offering spheric haptics or probably 150 microns of difference. You will never find 500, 600, 700 microns of toricity in those lenses. So you will never be able to find a lens in your trial sets fitting on this eye. So that means you always have to order one lens, guesswork, and then redo your work. So probably on this eye, I'm pretty sure you always need at least 3 lenses when you're an experienced lens fitter. Yeah, that was the last example that I wanted to show. Something you want to kick in, Tom?
Well, studies on scleral shape that have been published really in the last 3 or 4 years have just demonstrated how toric and asymmetrical the scleral shape is in patients. One paper from a couple of years ago estimated that of 140 patients, 66% had no regular periodicity in the scleral shape. That means they weren't, with the rule or against the rule toricity of the sclera. So, people are a lot more ectatic than you think. And as you pointed out, Reinier, there's a lot more that those toricity values are a lot greater than we think, particularly if you're fitting a larger lens, like you pointed out, a Zen lens 17 or the Boston sight lenses, which are 18 to 19. You get large amounts of toricity. 400, 500, 600 microns are very, very common. So there's more toricity than you think. And so, again, with ESP, with the surface profilometry, takes a lot of the guesswork out, and you can be more confident in your fitting. So with that, I guess we'll wrap up here. And what we've seen today is that, and I hope we've demonstrated that the iService Profiler will certainly increase the speed and precision of your fits. There's a large menu of first lens fit algorithms. I'm pretty confident that whatever you're fitting has an algorithm embedded on board, the ESP. Direct Connect is a great tool. The labs like it. Your staff will like it. And you will like it. It's a big time saver, and you have the data at your fingertips. And the last bullet, Eaglet is committed to enhancements, and that's certainly true. As I said, I've worked with Eaglet for now over 3 years, and Reinier and Arnie and the team. And they're very, very doctor oriented. They listen to us. They take our suggestions seriously. And if they're appropriate, they're implemented quickly. So honestly, this comes from the heart. This is one of the most responsive technology teams I've ever had the pleasure to work with. And it's a small company. You talk to the people at the top and things get done quickly, which is not often the case with some of these corporations. So I truly feel that the Eaglet is committed to you, the doctor, the practitioner, as we're all committed to our patients. So again, pleasure to be here today. Thank you for having me. All of you out there listening, you can reach out to me and I'll be happy to answer any questions if I can, and everybody's welcome to come visit. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Tom Schoen, and
Thank you.
and the
Thank
Eaglet
you.
team. Thanks a lot, guys.
I think you can see my screen. Before I go any further, Tom, I want to thank you for those kind words. I hope you're right. We work very hard to make the customer the number one priority, the user. And Reinier, I'll thank you as well for that great overview of the software and some of the deep dives. So, and I will remind you that when I'm done talking, we'll turn it over to live Q&A. And while I'm trying to wrap this up in an hour, we are happy to stay until the last person leaves. So if you've got questions, don't hang up. So I hope that we've demonstrated how the ESP can dramatically improve the specialty side of your practice. I believe we have, and if you have any questions, ask them now, send me an email later, send Tom Arnold an email. But one of the key things in my mind, I'm a marketing guy, is that a specialty practice is a very, very strategic way to differentiate your practice from others in your community. These particularly the keratoconus patients are going to seek you out, and they are online. They're trying to figure out who the best practitioners are, and with an ESP, they're going to want to see you. So that's the point I wanted to make. I hope you've been able to see how intuitive the ESP software is. We're working very hard to make it very straightforward, not as complicated as some of the others out there, I believe. And we hope you agree. Fundamentally, the profilometry is nearly essential to fit specialty lenses. If not at this point in time, then certainly going forward, it's going to be more and more important. So the next steps, we'd be happy to do an individualized online demo. So shoot me an email, shoot any of us an email, and say I want to do a demo. And in the email, you can suggest some times. Just keep in mind that I need somebody like Arnie or Reinier on the line to get into the technical details. I don't feel comfortable yet with the technical side of this thing, so we gotta recognize the fact that they're 6 hours ahead of us on the East Coast and 9 on the West Coast if you're in the U.S. or North America. We'd be happy to quote you guys. Now, when I talk about a quote, we'll send you a quote. And the other thing I wanted to say was because of COVID-19, we did what we could to make the financing a little easier. So we've developed the easy payment plan. And what that says in a nutshell is, give us about 50% down payment, and we can spread the balance over 6 months, one payment a month for 6 months and at no interest. So we're doing what we can to make the financial implications of COVID reasonable and easy to get through. And let us know what questions went unanswered today. So with that, I'm going to try and figure out how to unmute all.
There are a couple of questions in the chat box.
Yeah, while I'm trying to do that, Reinier, can you answer the questions for me?
Yeah, Charlie Ray asked about how many measurements should they take. Well, we recommend always 3 because it takes about, after the setup of the patient, instilling the fluorescein, it takes about 30 seconds to open the eyelids and take 3 measurements. And we have instructions which measurement should you pick, which is based on having the best focus and not being too dry. So if you have been waiting too long, the eye is drying up, the fluorescein is washing out. So, but we have training videos showing you what should be the best measurement, and otherwise we're always willing to set up a conference call. There is another question from Gloria. Can you comment on how the ESP compares to the Pentacam? Are we going to answer this right now, Tom?
Sure, I'd be happy to address that. Pentacam is a great instrument. It's a great instrument. I've used it a lot, and I've worked with them on their CSP software. And it is very, very good. But I will say that the thing about with the at the Oculus, the Pentacam now doesn't have onboard algorithms, fitting algorithms as the Eaglet does. And even though it doesn't take fluorescein, because it uses a shine fluid camera, you presently have to take 5 images. You take the central cornea, and then the instrument moves up, down, left and right, but you have to take 5 different scans. So it does take a bit longer. And I find in the labs that I deal with tell me that the images are extrapolated a little more, the peripheral images. So the Eaglet really gets out 18, 19, 20 millimeters with everybody. And you don't always get that with Oculus. I'm a big fan. A Pentacam really is a different instrument. For managing keratoconus and ectasias, the Eaglet eye surface profiler is focused on specialty lens fitting.
Hey, Reinier, would you talk a little bit about the tangent angles? Earlier you were talking about the bi-elevation lens. Would you go into the tangent angles and about, if I'm correct, that would explain a little bit more about why your haptics are so similar in the bi-elevation lens, because the tangent angles map shouldn't change that much?
So the tangent angles map, as what we have, it's hard to use it directly for lens designing. What it is useful for is recognizing a couple of things: dryness, tear pooling, scleral imprint. It's very sensitive for scleral imprint, and it helps you to choose or to get a feeling if you should go toric or quad specific. Realize that the tangent angles map is analyzing it point by point. So every point may have a different tangent angle. Whereas when you're thinking about, let's say, the VS Scleral, they have a haptic which is designed as a tangent, but that's over an area. Let's say starting on top of my mind at 13, and it's a 16 millimeter lens. So that's something different, because at that point you have to take a couple of sagittal height points and try to fit what is the best tangent angle. And now back to your question about related to the Zen BE, and I'm trying to see if I can probably explain this better.
Hi, Aaron. How you doing?
Hey.
It's an excellent question. I use the tangent angle map as kind of a confirmation of the bisphere elevation map. Kind of 2 different ways of looking at the same thing. And so it doesn't, I don't think it extrapolates directly into the data, but again, it gives me a good idea of, where the scleral state. And I do think we're working with VS to link those two, because as you well know, the VS uses tangent angles and haptics. So I don't think they're coordinated right now, but they're working on it. So
Yeah,
I think it's a useful kind of second map to go, yeah, this makes sense.
I'm thinking, and also about the Blanchard lens. If you use the Fit, I don't know, I can't remember if they call it Fit Connect on their platform or whatever, but when you transfer the data over, they've got a button that you can hit that says like manual entry or manual data or something.
Right.
When you hit that, it'll give you an angle. It'll say like 46 degrees or 42 and a half degrees or something. Is that angle coming from the tangent angle?
No, that actually, I'm very familiar with that, Aaron. That is for Pentacam. That is for CSP. So if you're using the CSP, then you put those data in there. If you have, so that's what that's for. With Eaglet, you don't have to do that.
I definitely I understand that, but what I'm saying is it's when you hit the number, it's pulling numbers from the Eaglet into that angles spot. So I'm trying to understand that the angle that is pulling into that those boxes, is that coming from the tangent angle map? Like where those where's that data being pulled from within the Eaglet?
That's a Reinier question.
Yeah, that's taken from SAC values over certain chord lengths. And I don't know it exactly because it's their technology, but on top of my mind, I'm saying that they use it to level the data. And what does that mean? What you may have noticed when you're trying to fit a quad-specific lens, very often you find the limits of a design. So with one fit mat, the steepest option is minus 300 on top of my mind, and the flattest is plus 300. Often you're hitting these limitations. They believe, and to be honest, I agree often, that it's not always necessary to go this extremely quad specific, because it's not always necessary to have a lens perfectly centered. Probably you need to do this when you're designing a multifocal or a front cylinder. But at the moment that it's a simple spheric optic, a certain amount of temporal decentration is acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much decentration too, but you want some tear exchange. Yeah, I think that's what we're going for, Reinier, is that you don't want to seal it, suck it on. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen because it's also probably the wind up of this. And this relates to your remark about the Zen BE. What I'm showing here is in the red dotted line is the flat meridian, and in blue the steep meridian. What you notice in this area is that it's more or less the same tangent angle. So the difference is made already before. What you also notice, the difference here is in the tangent is not very big. It's slightly flatter, but it's not a lot. If you think about fitting what Tom is just saying, the algorithms are always aiming for a near sealed fit. So they reduce the steep meridian with about 150 microns. So that means that they when they really take the fit, they try to, this is too precise to draw it, but they come in somewhere in between. And then you have more or less the same tangent angle. So this probably explains why the APS values are often so similar when you're talking about this NBE.
So Gloria has another question, and that is, can this help with the centered optics, like on the Maxim? I added the like, Gloria. Sorry.
Absolutely. Cannot answer everything, but let me start sharing once more. Just stopped it. So what you do is you select AccuLens, the Maxim, and you hit calculate. It's only coming up with a suggestion for the best lens in your trial set. Put this one on eye, do your over refraction, and hit the connect button. At that moment, you push all the information to Troy Miller, and Troy Miller is, it's probably not a scan fit, but he's doing a very, very nice job with a very customized lens based on 8 meridians on top of my mind. So he's creating a fully customized lens. It helps him with centering, decentering the lens. Yeah, you still have to pop that lens with all the marks on eye, but it really helps him to design the lens centering as good as possible.
So I want to thank you guys for your time this Saturday, and we look forward to serving you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.